Moving on, in Sweden, about 10 people have been killed in a shooting at an education center, including the suspected gunman. Swedish Prime Minister says that this is the worst mass shooting in the country's history. But a lot of questions are still unanswered. The violence occurred at campus Riksbergska in the town of Orbero. The Orbero police chief has said that they cannot be more specific about the death toll due to the large number of those wounded.
This situation update is related to today's tragic event at the Riksbergska adult education campus. We now know that around 10 people have died there today, which is why we cannot provide more specific details at this time. This is due to the extent of the damage. Our current efforts involve several parts: identifying the deceased, following up on the condition of the injured, and conducting an extensive investigation.
Sen handlar det också om en omfattande utredningsarbete.
Police are not aware of a motive yet, but they do not currently suspect terrorism as a motive. The police chief also said that they believe that the gunman acted alone and he has not previously been known to the police. He is believed to be among those killed, and search is ongoing at the school for other possible victims. An eyewitness who was at the school when the shooting took place has recounted the event.
A guy next to me was shot in the shoulder. He was bleeding a lot. When I looked behind me, I saw 3 people on the floor bleeding. Everyone was shocked. They said, "Go out! Get out!" I and my friend tried to save the life of this person. People were very shocked.
A candlelight vigil was held near the site of the mass shooting. Several people lit candles, recounting how amid the chaos they saw people panicking, trying to get hold of their loved ones that were inside the school. If you're a woman born in Afghanistan who lives under the perennial fear of the Taliban rule, we feel you. And most importantly, we hear you. In a fresh blow to women's rights in the country, the Taliban has suspended the operation of Afghanistan's only women's radio station after raiding the area on Tuesday, thus barring women from voicing their views and opinions. Now, why is this concerning, and what does this mean for the overall women's rights in the country? Kabul-based Radio Begum, a station run by women with content aimed at women's education, was forced to stop operations after the Taliban's Information and Culture Ministry searched its office and restrained the station's staff. In a statement on Tuesday, the station said that the officers seized computers, hard drives, files and phones from Begum staff, including Begum female journalists, and took into custody 2 male employees of the organization who do not hold any senior management position. Clarifying the move further, the Taliban's Information and Culture Ministry said that it suspended Radio Begum on grounds of unauthorized provision of content and programming to an overseas TV channel. This is even as the Taliban did not identify the foreign TV channel in question. It said it will determine the station's future in due course of time. Needless to say, the move has received backlash from several quarters, including Reporters Without Borders, or RSF, which is an independent rights group, which condemned the suspension and demanded its immediate reversal. And as for Radio Begum, the station said it has never been involved in any political activity and was in fact committed to serving the Afghan people and more specifically the Afghan women. But why does it matter? You see, prior to the ban, Radio Begum broadcast 6 hours of lessons a day, along with health, psychology and spiritual programs to women across most of Afghanistan, which means it served as a forum to inform and educate women and thus empower them in various spheres. Not just that, its sister channels also offer lessons online, which are shot in studios thousands of miles away in Paris. The classes, which are televised, cover a wide array of subjects. Just to refresh your memory at this point of time, the Taliban had banned girls from attending schools beyond 6th grade. Thus, portals like Radio Begum have been extremely important in delivering the knowledge that the women of Afghanistan need, in a bid to keep them abreast with what's happening in the world at large. And what is the Taliban doing? The Taliban is decimating women's dreams, dignity and rights and tightening its noose around women's freedom, one decree at a time. However, the Taliban's crackdown against women is not a novel phenomenon per se and has very much been the mandate since it rose to power in 2021. This is despite the group initially posing itself to be more moderate than it was during its previous rule of Afghanistan in the 1990s. As this time around, the Taliban promised that women would be allowed to continue their education up to university level. Clearly, these were all empty promises by the Taliban, the impact of which is now being felt by an entire generation of women. And it's not just them who face dire consequences under the Taliban, but also those who have stood up for them, including ministers in the Taliban government itself. Case in point is this Taliban minister, who now appears to have been forced to flee the country. What was his fault? Expressing support for reversing the ban on girls' education in Afghanistan. Here's what happened. On the 20th of January, Mohammed Abbas, Taliban's deputy foreign minister, criticized the government's ban on girls attending secondary schools and higher education. While speaking at a graduation ceremony in Khost province near the Afghan-Pakistan border, he said, and I quote here, "There is no excuse for this, not now and not in the future." He also said, I'm quoting him again, "We are being unjust to 20 million people. During the time of the Prophet Muhammad, the doors of knowledge were opened for both men and women." Pretty uncanny for a Taliban minister to say so. That too in a public forum, given Taliban's explicit anti-women policies. Not just him. Another Taliban minister too had a similar position on the education of girls in Taliban. We're talking about Mohammad Nabi Omari, the Taliban's deputy minister of interior, who was moved to tears while speaking about the group's strict restrictions on girls' education, which have been imposed by Taliban leader Hibatullah Khundazada. In a video widely circulated on social media, Omari is seen breaking down during a speech on the closure of girls' schools, as he urged for their urgent reopening. Now, to get a sense of the situation on the ground better, does this suggest that the Taliban government remains divided? That is, when it comes to basic human rights, such as the right to education and to express freely. To get a sense of what is happening there, WION spoke to Mehbooba Siraj, Executive Director for AWSDC, that is Afghan Women's Skills Development Center. Listen.
There's a lot of fear here, and the fear is absolutely real. Because there is no personal security in Afghanistan anymore. So anything can happen to any woman in Afghanistan at any minute, really. It just their lives, their livelihoods, their freedom, their whatever. They don't have any freedom, but whatever they have, that everything and anything could be taken away from them in a blink of an eye. This is what is actually happening, and we don't really know how to stop this. And then when it happens, the strangest thing is that there are some of the Taliban that they are not for this, and they are against all of this.
Now, the main question is, despite the several odds that women in Afghanistan are confronted with, can they gather the strength to fight back and reclaim their fundamental rights? Well, we'll have to wait and watch. In the raging US-China trade war, a cool China has stumped aggressive Trump. The reason we say this is because not only did Beijing swiftly respond to Washington by imposing counter-tariffs, but also accused the US of suppression. And that's after its postal service said that it is suspending parcels from China and Hong Kong, a move that could hit Chinese e-commerce giants Temu and Shein. Well, China announced a wide range of measures targeting US businesses, including Google, farm equipment makers, and the owner of fashion brand Calvin Klein. Minutes after, new U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods took effect. U.S., on the other hand, seems to be on the back foot right now. The U.S. Postal Service on Wednesday halted an order to suspend incoming shipments from China, a day after announcing the suspension over President Donald Trump's tariffs on China. The Postal Service said that it would actually continue accepting all international inbound mail and packages from China and Hong Kong Post. It added it is working to implement an efficient collection mechanism for the new China tariffs to ensure the least disruption to package delivery. China so far has done a good job in hiding its anger. It urged Washington for talks after saying that there would be no winners in this war over tariffs. This even as Trump said that he is in no hurry to speak with Chinese President Xi Jinping. But how far can this war escalate between the world's two largest economies? Beijing and Washington have gone neck and neck on tariffs during Trump 1.0, but since then, a lot has changed. The Chinese economy is no longer reliant on U.S. as it was in 2020. China rather strengthened its trade ties across Africa, South America and Southeast Asia. It is now the largest trading partner of more than 120 countries. As Trumperica retreats, Xi smells a bigger opportunity. While Trump is sending jitters across its European allies by threatening to impose tariffs, China appears calm and perhaps coming across as a more attractive global partner. On Wednesday, the Chinese Foreign Ministry criticized the U.S. measures and expressed strong dissatisfaction and also resolute opposition to the imposition of tariffs on Beijing. China called for a dialogue between China and the U.S., while also defending China's counter-tariffs as a requirement to safeguard its rights and interests. The Chinese spokesperson said China will take unspecified measures to safeguard its rights and interests on Chinese companies. And that is if the U.S. does not back off right now.
The United States uses the fentanyl issue as a pretext to levy 10% tariffs on imports. China deplores and firmly opposes it. The measures that China takes is necessary to protect its legitimate rights and interests. Trade wars and tariff wars have no winners. Threatening China with pressure leads nowhere. China urges the United States to correct its wrongdoings, solve each other's concerns through equal-footed consultation, and promote the sound, stable, and sustainable development of U.S.-China relations.
Lin also mentioned about the phone call between Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping on January 17th, where China had clarified its position on this issue, and of the two sides reaching a consensus of mutual cooperation. But what it got in return was just more tariffs. And as far as dialogue between the two countries is concerned, Trump said he is in no rush to speak with Xi, despite signaling earlier that the talks could take place sometime early this week. Meanwhile, Trump's White House press secretary Karoline Leavitt said U.S. will not allow China to continue to source and distribute deadly fentanyl into the U.S., which is also the prime reason why tariffs have been affected. This spells doom for stock markets as investors brace for volatile market activity in the coming weeks. Already, the dollar rebounded after the news of tariffs, while the offshore yuan extended its loss to 0.3%. And China, being a major market for U.S. energy exports, with the imports totaling more than $7 billion last year. According to Beijing customs data, the impact could be huge, and as far as geopolitics is concerned, this sets the stage again for the two rivals to battle it out. What lies ahead? Watch this space for more.